Welcome to the Contrarians and tonight's topic. How has the concert-going experience changed over the years? We're looking at the good, the bad, the ugly. So let's get started. The panel's here. Let's do it. Welcome to the Contrarians, and tonight we have a great topic. In fact, our own Peter Jones came up with this topic. We're going to talk about how has the concert experience changed for you over the years? Is it good or bad? We do want to hear from you in the chat, but we also have a great panel here that is going to discuss it. So I want to welcome Philip. I want to welcome Peter Jones. I want to welcome the Elder of Rock and Nick Esquire. So we're just going to keep it loose, keep it interactive. And like I said, anybody that's watching this show, we do want to hear about your experiences in the comments. So please do that. So since this was Peter Jones' topic, I'm going to let him start this out. So Peter Jones, welcome to the show. Nice to see you.
Great. It's nice to see you. Good to see our panelists. This was something that I was mulling over the other day because where I'm located in North Dakota, and this was one of my subtopics here, I was debating whether I was going to get tickets to a concert I was interested in seeing, and then I just thought about how everything has kind of changed. And so I have some subtopics. I will just kind of hit those subtopics. We'll let people go around and we'll mull over them, and we'll do however we'll do this. For me personally, and these will all be just for me, folks. So if your experience is different, that's more than okay. The first thing that came to mind to me was a comment called first come, first serve. The online ticket situation. You say, well, that's been happening for such a long time. Well, yeah, but I've been available to go to concerts for a long time, and it used to be a lot different. The thing that made me think of this the most was that when I was in line to get tickets to see Rush on the Presto tour, we waited out overnight. I waited out overnight for tickets more than a dozen times over my concert going career, in snowstorms, in rain, because first come, first served. And that's how you would get the better seats to the concerts. Well, 2 minutes before they opened the location, the guy who was running the place opened up, pulled out this big lottery thing, gave everybody a bunch of numbers, and I went from first in line to 22nd. And I was like, no, I don't like that. And, you had to find rides. You had to if you couldn't drive, you had somebody to take you to the ticket office. You had to do all those kinds of things. And I think what's different, and they talk about it in sports and everything else, is that it's a generalization perhaps, but it's at least true in my book, that a lot of times the people who are perhaps the more enthusiastic or diehard sometimes don't end up being closer to the stage. And that's kind of where they should be. I think it makes for a much more exciting overall experience. But that's something that changed. And even with online tickets, it's not unusual to kind of go when it opens up, and next thing you realize there's whole sections that are gone, everything. You're like, what? and you're right there when it opens, but you're still not whatever line you're in, cyber-wise. And then a bunch of corporations and radio stations and record companies buy up the closer ones. They use them in giveaways. They go to scalpers. And to get close is nuts. So that's one thing that I'm not a big fan of. I preferred you put in the work, you get the benefit of it, you get closer to the stage, and you get to take advantage of that. The other aspects I'm going to talk about for me are just all in general. I call it the presentation itself. The stage and the sound. To me, I greatly dislike video screens. I don't like them behind artists. I think they're visually distracting. You are limited to see what the camera person wants you to see. And when you're watching somebody who's this big and the video screen is this big, but you're trying to look at two different things, it's just not my cup of tea. If they're on the side for people who are further away, fine. But when it's behind the band proper, that kind of stuff kind of drives me nuts. And the other thing, too, is I think stages are too bright. And you say, well, gee, what's the problem with being too bright? Well, again, it's to benefit the people who are further away. Up close, It's like having all your lights on in your bedroom. There is no color scheme. There is no mood. They don't set tones. It just is all on all the time, all flashing. And it doesn't have the same impact that you used to get back in the day. Yeah, I just said back in the day. And I've got tens of thousands of concert photos in my portfolios on my hard drives. And the coolest stages are always the ones where it's so dark around the stage, where the lights, even smaller amounts of lights, create a much more dramatic impact, more like a theater presentation or a Broadway show or something. It is much more creative to me. And also, the other thing I notice is that a lot of times the lights are just continually flashing and they're not in sync with the music. A lot of the great bands back in the day, they're synced. Music would change, the lights would change along with it and help really create both a visual and sonic impact. So I'm not a big fan of that either. And then as far as sound, and then I'll let others go here, is you're punished the closer you are to the stage. And you say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, actually it does, because everything is reversed from what it used to be. Now, because everything hangs from the ceiling and is directed out into the stadium, and with the advent and the perpetual use of in-ear monitoring, stage volumes have been reduced by almost 90%, the volume on stage. Well, what that does is it cuts out the throw into the audience in those first sections, and the PAs are hung up to the sides and it blows right past them. So you're closer, there's nothing coming from the stage, and you lose that, what I think is the most glorious part of a concert, is that chest impact crushing volume that makes you just kind of smile. You can't get that closer to the stage. Sure, it's still loud, but if you're a little further back, the sound is way, way better. So you get punished again. You're closer, you maybe can see better, but it's not sonically better. And so that's another thing, because they're making it more advantageous for the people who are in the further back, who were punished years ago for being further away. Well, I only worry about me. I like being close, I like to see, and I like it to be the loudest. And that's not usually what happens these days. So I'll stop right there. I've got some other topics, but I don't want to monopolize here. So those are some of the things that have changed for me, and not really for the better. So
Awesome. Excellent. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just keep it going. I think I'm going to go. I started off with Peter. I think I'm going to go over to Nick, then the Elder, and then Philip, and we'll just keep going around. I mean, it was just a loose discussion. So,
Yeah.
all right. Nick Esquire, nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks, everybody. I would start out by saying that my experiences of late are a mixed bag of positive and maybe less positive. But overall, I think on balance, I think I have more positive experiences now after 41 years of concert going than I did maybe the first 10 or 15 years. So I think maybe my feeling on it may differ a little bit from Peter, although I have a lot of complaints and there's a lot of negatives. Concert going is still one of my favorite things to do. I love it. I'm a little more selective now with experience and maybe time constraints. I don't see as many artists and concerts as I used to, but it's still one of my just joys to do. Matter of fact, this past Sunday, I got a chance to see a good friend of mine who was sitting on the drum chair throne for Gene Loves Jezebel in a little club outside Philadelphia. So it was a tiny little place, got to experience music that I wouldn't ordinarily listen to, and loved it. And a week or two from now, I'll be going to see Andy Blacksugar, our fellow Contrarian, playing guitar for KMFDM, and meeting a fellow Contrarian, John the Music Nut there, who, as you know, is a beast when it comes to live shows. So I think overall, I'm kind of liking the experience. Let me start where Peter left off. I feel that sound is better at most concerts I attend. I favor venues that are smaller. I'm not out in big stadiums. I'm not out in big arenas. Typically, I like theaters. I like clubs. I think with technology, the rigs are smaller. They have less decibels and they have more clarity. That's sort of what the industry sort of standard is now, and that's been my experience. I understand what Peter's saying. I have been up front. I still get stage volume. I prefer to be back a little bit, actually, because I get to hear maybe vocals a little bit better, but I haven't had those problems. Lighting-wise, I understand the issue of the video stuff. I find it a bit distracting. For me, and getting maybe older and crankier as I go, I like performers and artists that just go and play. I don't need the crazy pyro, even though I'm a Kiss fan. I like that kind of thing and don't mind, I'm okay with it. But that's not what I'm really interested in at this point. I like the performance. I want to hear good playing and good singing. And if there's good lighting and or pyro, great. It could also be distracting to me too. But so that for me is part of my experience level. So for me, I like a stripped down approach. As far as the ticketing goes, I hear you about putting in the time and the effort, but I really like being able to pick out my seat. I love that. I love to go click on the box. I'm like, oh, you want an aisle seat? My legs are killing me. I want an aisle seat. I don't mind. I don't mind being a little stage left, stage right, as opposed to schlepping it up to the Ticketmaster or Ticketron location and have some lady just tell me, here, you're going to be in the rafters for this concert and not having any choice. Or sort of waiting online in the rain overnight, whatever, and still being in the rafters. So I kind of like that. I understand. I get it's a game. There's expense involved now. They add fees. You got to play the game sometimes for bigger shows with pre-sales. And so if you play that game, you can get better seats. So that is a little frustrating. But for the shows that I really like, I'm usually with those artists that we're not selling out in an hour and a half. And so I can pick those seats out, and I really love to be able to cherry pick that. So I'm kind of a fan of, when I said smaller venues and clubs, I love the old theaters that have been rehabbed. Sometimes seats are a little tight. I get older. I'm crankier when in a way. I like facilities that have food. I like facilities that have booze to make a day of it if you want to. And that's all part of my experience. The concert going experience for me as a kid used to be almost like a religious experience. It is not that way anymore, but that's okay. I like it in the moment. I also now factor in, I love if it's a great old building or I'm there with friends or, met John the Music Nut to go see the old 97s a few weeks ago, which is a band you don't hear about on the Contrarians. And we ate at a restaurant at the facility nearby and other people joined us and it was a great time. So I kind of incorporate all that into my experience. And after 41 years, I kind of know what I like and what I don't like. I can go on and on all day about things, some positives and negatives. I'll say this. Overall, though, there's less surprises in the concert experience. Why? Well, there's video out there. There's audio out there. There's Setlist FM. The songs that are coming. I try to be a little bit ignorant of that stuff. There's click tracks. There's backing tracks. I favor artists that don't do that. I like the spontaneity. I like a little bit of danger. It's a little bit safe nowadays. So the venues themselves and the audience, there's less fights. There's less shenanigans. Things are more behaved. It's more professionalized. And so with that comes a certain sanitization, if you will. But at the same time, back in the day, I'd have to, if I brought my lady to a show, I have to worry about getting in fights. I usually don't have to worry about that anymore. When you go to see a hard rock show or a rock show, classic rock show with drunks in the crowd. So, I could talk about a lot of different examples and hopefully you guys will hit on it, but I just want to touch on a few. But for me, overall, I'm good with it. I'm fine with it. And I think it's a result of experience and knowing what I like and knowing what I don't like and knowing what I can avoid to have a better experience. I just saw a show recently. You have to take one for the team. A lady wanted to see Meghan Trainor outside Philadelphia. Not one live musician, all backing tracks. I survived. There was a lot of lighting and stuff. I got something out of the deal. It was okay for me. It wasn't the most unpleasant experience. I only knew one or two songs. It was all about the bass, etc. But it was okay. It's not going to be something I gravitate towards. But as an example of things, I try to keep an open mind of stuff and enjoy that experience. That's one where, back in the day I would never even thought about it. I'll give you one visual little tchotchke here for you. Still. You get things. This was thrown out by one Biff Byford of Saxon into the crowd after he drank a few, and I dove for it, of course, on the ground like I was 14. And here it is. He's got the water bottle with Biff's DNA, so to speak.
You can clone him.
Yeah, that's right.
Nick, you didn't throw anything out when you dove for it. I mean, you got up okay. Everything was all
Well,
right.
I crossbody blocked John Clauser and I took out the knees of John the Music Nut.
Oh,
So,
okay. Well,
so those
all
two
right, that's
guys,
fine.
yeah. So don't ask them about their bumps and bruises, but I did get it.
Okay.
And of course, walking out like a 14-year-old with a water bottle. So I still enjoy that kind of element of a music show.
You're a stud. Holy crap. All right. There's a lot that you said, Nick, that I agree of. I'm just gonna hold off though. But all right. The Elder of Rock. What's your thoughts, Elder?
Well, yeah, with the ticketing thing, I kind of agree with Pete, but I also think that as we get older, we don't want to deal with as much crap as we used to when we were younger. Sometimes you don't have the patience like to stand in a line or anything like that, or our knees start to hurt and stuff. But I remember it was a lot of fun doing that. I even remember going to lines to concerts I wasn't going to go to for ticket lines, just because I knew a lot of people were going to be there having fun. And with the lottery thing, how friends of mine, we beat that one time was for the Kiss reunion. 4 of us stood in different parts of the line. And then when the number came out, we each got whoever had the best number,
Right.
We gave them our money. And so they got, and I ended up not getting all right seats. But the last actual concert I went to was I took my daughter to see a rapper called NF, who is like a positive rapper, like Eminem. And it was a good show. Everybody was nice, and he's positive. Everybody's upbeat there, and he's there. He had a live drummer, but no other musicians. But it was, I really kind of ended up enjoying it. He was spontaneous in parts and gave the drummers some time to play solo, and but I was pleasantly surprised by it. And it was good. Like, everybody was well behaved. No drunks or anything like that I saw. The show I saw before that though was Trans-Siberian Orchestra last Christmas, and the same thing. Everybody was nice there. Of course, you probably wouldn't see it because a lot of families go to that anyway, so you probably wouldn't see a lot of those shenanigans going on. But the sound was great. I think the technology they have to do a show now is great. Levitating things all over the place, platforms, singer popping up in the middle of the arena in a snow globe. I mean, it was just really awesome. And then I think the show before I went to that was a Baby Metal and Death Clock. And that was an outdoor show. And this was wasn't your typical though. You saw like a lot of anime type people there, cosplay people there. Baby Metal, they're this band that's a hybrid of J-pop and thrash death, dubstep, whatever you want to make it. Death Clock is a cartoon band that was on Adult Swim, Cartoon Network. And so they were kind of cool because they had video screens behind them, because it's Brendan Small. He's the band, and he has a band, their live band, but then they have the cartoon band is playing behind them, the songs, and showing clips. So that was kind of interesting. But so other than that, that's be club shows that I've been to. And the main thing though, I can say that big difference is there's no smoking anymore. And I used to remember coming out of club shows and even arena shows back in the day, just like reeking. I had to put my clothes in the wash right away. And I really like that there's no smoking anymore. I don't have anything against it, personally, if you want to do it, fine. But I just don't want to smell like it. I don't want it on me. And so those are kind of some of the differences I have found in recent shows.
All right, Elder, thanks so much. All right, let's throw it over to Philip. Philip, what's your thoughts on the whole concert experience?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have different insights to bring, since also I think I'm the youngest here in the group, even though I'm not exactly very young at the moment. I'm a little over 40. I just want to bounce off what Elder said before about smoking. The worst concert experience of my entire life was in 1998. I'll never forget this. I had gone to see a double bill of a Swedish death metal band, Dark Tranquillity, with the up-and-coming at the time thrash band, The Haunted, in Athens, Greece. Mentioned before, I come from Greece. And this was in a really, really small club. they had sold way too many tickets, more than the capacity of the place could allow. It was a club really badly kind of arranged. People were like standing vertically, then horizontally, sort of. It was really bizarre. The floor was tiled and it was kind of slippery. And if there was a lot of pushing or moshing, whatever, you would actually possibly slip. But as mentioned before, the worst thing was that smoking was still allowed. Okay, and in Greece, we still have closed spaces where people still smoke, even though it's not allowed, but they do it anyway. And I'll never forget this. I was like, we were all standing there. We were really tight, like sardines packed in a can. And there's this guy in front of me, and he wants to light a cigarette, and he's telling the guy in front of him to move his hair sort of away so that he doesn't light up his hair when he's doing a cigarette. So, yeah, I'm totally grateful for the fact that, like, yeah, there's no smoke, and like we take these things for granted, but there was a time when there would be definitely like smoking, and depending on the type of gig you go to, there might be someone who brings some weed or something, and maybe it's part of the whole experience of watching some kind of like stoner band or something. But yeah, I'm totally happy with that. Yeah, I'm almost 41, and I already feel like I just need to throw the towel in, basically. I'm not in for any more violence, pushing, moshing, anything like that. The gig I mentioned before in 1998, which was in that tiny little club, well, at some point people really started getting a bit, overactive or whatever, while we were just so tightly packed, and some guy just gave me sort of like an elbow or something, and my glasses fell to the ground.
Oh.
I had at the time already had quite a few degrees of farsightedness, so my glasses fell to the ground. One lens got shattered, and that wasn't a pleasant experience. And I still remember it so many, like more than 20 years. No, sorry, yes, more than 20 years later. Jesus, time flies. So right now, if there's the opportunity for me to go for being, as Nick said before, being seated and all that, I'm totally up for it. I remember seeing in 2018 Iron Maiden in a, like, of course, some kind of stadium arena thing, again in Athens. Which tour was that? I forget which tour that was. Anyway, I saw Iron Maiden for the third time in my life back in 2018, and it was just chaos. Like, I don't remember any particular moment or any song where I really enjoyed myself, because apart from the fact that, I mean, already at that time, my legs get tired, as you guys mentioned already, and all of that, and it's not pleasant. I was like in this massive crowd where everyone's screaming and shouting, and everyone's singing off key, super loud. I can't hear anything else, and I didn't enjoy anything. So when I saw the announcement recently for the 50-year anniversary tour, I thought I really just need to go and see them one last time before they retire forever, because they're not getting any younger, and they say it's going to be their most crazy like show in terms of spectacle, right? So I thought, okay, I'm going to get a ticket, and of course, tickets are the prices are like insane. I didn't expect. I knew they would be expensive, but I live in France right now, and my chances are to see them. Basically, I booked a ticket to see them in London, across the pond from where I live, and that's like high up on this seated area of the stadium, and it's like what did I give, like 180 pounds or something. I have never had to pay so much money for any legacy band I've seen before. I was like, okay, you know what? Just do it. Just do it. It's going to be worth it, because this time I will see them and I'll be seated. And I'll be seated and it'll be comfortable. And on top of that, I will not come home with severe tinnitus for 5 days, and then for another like month, this thing where, like, I don't know what it's called, where everything sounds too loud, where someone's talking next to you and it sounds, too loud for you.
Maybe misphonia, or I don't know, maybe.
You've experienced a temporary threshold shift.
Well said, exactly.
That's what happens to the eardrums.
That couldn't have said any better. Well, I mean, imagine that I've been playing in bands since the mid 2000s, and it was only until like around 2015, 16 where I said, whoa, okay, I need to start wearing earplugs. and I need to go to concert wearing some kind of earplugs. And then I started using box standard earplugs, and then I got some really good ones that filter the sound and all of that. And now I do not go to a concert without my specially made earplugs, because if I don't, I will suffer. My ears don't tolerate any more high volumes, high decibels. I need to have earplugs. Otherwise, I look around me and I see people enjoying what they're hearing and they're not wearing earplugs. And if I'm not, I'm like, I'm in pain. I cannot take it anymore. I've reached that threshold, as you said, where if I don't have earplugs, forget it. So that's part of the negative that has ruined the experience for me. The sound has gotten better, I find, with technology, but it's a bit hit or miss, and sometimes it depends where you're standing as well.
Mhm.
I think that the further back you are, sometimes the better it sounds, the more rounded the sound will be than if you're really up front. I'm not sure. I'm not so experienced with as a sound person, but from my own empirical knowledge, I can tell that somehow it's better when you're far back. I guess the other thing that's changed, since Pete mentioned also you're in North Dakota, and I don't know, for me it's difficult to go to a gig. I used to live in cities where there would be a gig every day, someplace, somewhere. Now I have to take a train or a bus, spend a night somewhere.
Right.
So I'm not gonna venture so often on a gig, and they really do cost much more than before. I used to go to more gigs without having to think of how much I'll spend, but now it's a very different story. And
not to mention the
maybe
merch.
yeah. Oh yeah, merch, forget it. I mean, I go to see still some of my favorite bands, most of them legacy bands, and I just cannot buy the merch. It's too expensive. And on top of that, I'm gonna pay 40, 50 euros over here in Europe to get a t-shirt which just has a lousy stamp on it or something. No. So that's unfortunate as well, the merch situation. I find more and more that merch is no longer part of the fun aspect of the package of going to a gig where you get some cool merch and you leave and you have all this nice stuff that you got. No.
You can usually find it cheaper online too. You can usually find
yeah, there's that as well. And yeah, of course, we cannot not mention the fact of phones and YouTube and I was reading this thing online. It doesn't apply so much to rock and metal, but when you see artists like Taylor Swift or what's her name, some of these very young pop artists who Rick Beato talks about all the time, there's a lot of influencers who literally kind of influence a bit what happens and how gigs are recorded or monitored and the sort of afterlife of a gig. And a lot plays on the backs of these kind of influencers, but we're talking here about really big pop artists, not, the stuff that Nick mentioned earlier, for instance. So yeah, I don't know. What else do you guys have to say on that?
Well, if I can, Grant, you want to chime in here?
Hang on. Yeah, sure. Yeah, distracted. Sure, I'll chime in. Well, as far as for me, the concert experience, last show I just went and saw Kraftwerk, and you can imagine no one really moved when you're watching Kraftwerk. So wasn't much going on there. And as you get older, it's not like I'm gonna go see Taylor Swift or go to see any of these new bands, with all the kids. I really don't have any interest. So I'm going with people my own age. So everybody's pretty much just standing around. It's all pretty mellow. For the most part, I'm not going to any, auditoriums or big coliseums or, anything really big. They're just more like smaller venues. And, the sound for the most part's fine. I'm with Philip on this. Always wear ear protection from all those years playing in bands and from that one night in 1994 when Urge Overkill was so loud, I've never recovered. Damn Urge Overkill. Damn you.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
But they were so distorted. The thing is, loudness is one thing, but when the PA is distorted, you're
Correct.
hitting it so hard that the board, everything's just, that's what hurts your ears.
Yes, it's
Yep.
not necessarily the volume.
Distortion.
Right.
It's the mixing of it.
Yeah.
So
I saw Motorhead in a small club in Cincinnati, at Bogart's in Cincinnati, and that was the loudest thing I've ever been to. But somehow you could still hear everything. But I came out of that not being able to hear at all. Like they had so much equipment on the stage for that. But yeah, so I think that's when I started wearing hearing protection after that show.
yeah, I should have after that, but I didn't. But now I always do. We went and saw Dinosaur Jr. My son and we were right up front, and I knew we had to have something for Dinosaur Jr. But
Well, yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Grant.
no, I'm just saying. But and the other thing, what Nick was saying, when you were a kid or when you're younger, you looked at these people as gods. It was like having a religious experience. I'm glad I got to see all the bands that I got to see.
They were young too.
Cornerstone tour, right? Dick's on the Cornerstone tour, Borner on Double Vision, those type of things. Because I have a lot more interest. Glad I got to see them then, as opposed to now, and I don't have as much interest. And I mean, would I go see Styx now? Of course.
Well, it's not like Styx is going to play their new album though, which I know you like. They
did play the new one back when it came out. Yeah, they played. The Mission. They played the whole album.
Yeah.
For some of those dates.
Mission. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that the luster has worn off, after all these years. It's not quite the same event as when you were a kid or when you went in the 80s, all through when you're in your 20s. Or if you're still in the same age group as Philip, you still have that. It's still shiny and new for Philip.
I think it's wearing off a little though for him.
Yeah. Well,
he still has hope.
The most recent one I went to, and Philip is correct. One of the things that is clearly in my wheelhouse now is that there aren't really, other than a very, very rare occasional show, will any of the national touring acts come to North Dakota. The closest they're going to be is Minneapolis, which is going to be 4 hours away. Oh. And of course, that clearly requires an overnight, the whole deal. And then you have to do that accordingly. Usually I'll try and find the Chicago date because I've still got family in Chicago. And then I'll go make it a bigger trip than just the concert. So that's a consideration that I have to take into account. You talked about the smoke thing. I was playing 6 nights a week in clubs for 4 or 5 years in the late 80s.
Yeah.
The amount of secondhand smoke that I ingested has to be staggering. I would open my drum cases and my Lord.
I still might have equipment that smells like smoke.
I have to polish off all my shells. I had to clean off the stuff off my hardware. I had 2 big industrial size fans. One was to keep my limbs and hands things dry. The other was positioned just to keep as much smoke away from me on stage as possible.
Oh boy.
And it didn't matter what the temperatures were like on breaks. I had to go outside.
Yep. Yeah. Same here.
I'm all sweaty. It's Denver. It's 5 degrees outside. I'm in a tank top, but I don't care because I can't breathe in there.
Your eyes, it gets in your eyes too, and your eyes start.
And it is also, I have to remind myself that when I would see friends play, I'm like, oh, do you want to go see them? I'm like, oh, wait, they don't smoke anymore. Oh, okay. Because I'm so conditioned to think that it's there that I have to tell myself it isn't. The last main concert I went to was Kiss's End of the Road in Nashville last October. And I went with my friend Billy Baker, who did Eric Singer's drums. So we were, we were given, the VIP treatment, the whole deal. And the thing with me is, yes, as Grant said, you go with your friends, and most of them are now much more mellow and everything. I am exactly the opposite. I'm very respectful to everybody around me. I've never been that kind of guy. but I'm the air drummer, air guitar, screaming, arms throwing my hands, and that's me. And when I'm further back, and I took my eldest son when he was ready to go to concerts to see Kiss on one of their makeup tours, they're past the reunion. We were further up because I didn't know how he would respond being up close, and I wanted to kind of protect him. And everybody around was just like loungy, and I'm trying to get into it. And he's like, Dad, I feel weird because everybody's looking at him, and he wanted to get into it, but because he said in the car, he goes, do they always kind of just sit like that?
Oh, man.
And I go, well, I usually sit way up close, but in this case, with the reunion, with this last end of the road, I was very close, middle section, front section. And even then, I'm like, where are the people that are like getting into it? And you're like looking around, and I do it for a while. And I'm like, you do get self-conscious. And it can be an inhibitor because I just want to have fun and go nuts. Yeah. And these are still, and I just turned 62 last weekend. These are still religious experiences to me, which is why I probably go to much less of them because I am
a really funny thing. A really funny thing that I have experienced with like what you described, feeling awkward and stuff. Imagine seeing a favorite band and you just feel like singing all the time, but everyone around you are not English speakers and they are really bad at English and they don't know the lyrics. The only person singing. That's me here.
Might take a little bit away from it.
Yeah. So the phone thing, but and as far as the sound, I will say this, they are better sounding. There's no question about it. The PAs are much better, and it really improves the vocals more than anything, because it's allowed them to give enough headroom that you can actually hear what they're singing. And there's a lot of concerts we went to back in the 70s. You think you're hearing the singer because you're filling it in mentally. You hear a recording of it back, and you're going,
yeah,
what?
It's like, well, it's maybe not so much there, but
it was like Vince Neil.
Yeah, well, and it's an interesting thing. And, you mentioned it too, Philip, and it's hard to compare. When I go through ticket stubs, and Grant, you do the same thing, I'm sure, Nick. I've got $8.50 to see Rush on the Hemispheres tour.
Wow.
$8.
Yeah.
Now, $8 was a lot of money in 1978 to some kid in high school,
But if you had a paper route or something like I did, you could still go.
You cut lawns. I would help my dad wash windows around the house because you knew they were coming, and you could
even get merch. You could even afford to get the merch too.
You'd get the tour program, a concert shirt, and your ticket.
Yeah. Nice.
I didn't need anything.
That as a kid.
I never drink, so once I got older, I could care less.
Yeah.
And so it's different when you look at it proportionately. And I paid $320 a piece for second row center in '96 for the Kiss reunion.
Wow.
That's the most I've ever spent for a ticket. And as great as it was, and I'm standing around people who weren't even born the first time I saw Kiss. They weren't even born.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay. And as Grant said, you can't, as much as you want to, you can't relive January of '77 when it's 1996.
Nope.
You can't do it. And is now all the people who didn't see them during that era, that was their peak. That was, I get to see it. Yeah.
Me. Saw them in '98, and I felt like I was in middle school.
There you go.
Because they sounded just like they did. I don't know how they pulled it off, but they just sounded wonderful. And you closed your eyes, and it sounded like Kiss Alive too. Just saying.
Well, the last thing I'll just say is, when you're talking about staging and pyro and things like that, I think this goes along with the lighting. There is something to be said about a little bit of discipline. And sometimes, and Ian Pace made this great quote because he was talking about drummers who he says, and he sees that are so far superior to him in his perception technically, as far as how fast they can play and the things that they play. And he goes, these drummers play 180 miles an hour. He said, the problem is if all you do is play 180 miles an hour, it's not very exciting anymore. You lose the thrill of it now. But if you play 50 miles an hour and then go to 180, both feel very, very different. Kiss was a perfect example on this last end of the road. When I saw him in 77, you had to wait for the flamethrowers to show up on a specific song in a specific part, and you were just blown away because, like, there it was. Well, the thing that people get annoyed about Malmsteen is kind of the similar thing that can happen in a stage. If they blow every pyro off and there's flamethrowers everywhere on every song from the very beginning, you start to go, okay, I've seen the fire. Cool. When are they going to do something different? Because that's the way we are. And you say, well, the greatest fireworks displays would be if the whole show was nothing but a finale. I beg to differ. It's the finale that makes it over the top exciting because it built to that. And you had all the ones along the way anticipating, waiting, getting to what you know is coming. But when it gets there, it's very satisfying. And it's too much. Everything on all the time, flash, bomb, everything. And by the time you get to the end, the encore, you've seen everything. There's nothing else to see. And it's slightly anticlimactic. This is just for me. Other people may think it's really cool. But, and I'm talking, almost exclusively about bigger concerts, bigger auditoriums, that kind of thing. Clubs and small theaters, totally different ballgame. Small theaters, I love small theaters, intimate places, but most of the time those PAs are on the stage. They're not hanging up. You don't have balconies in a lot of cases. If you do, it's just a singular one straight, nothing really on the sides. It's much easier to fill it sonically at a larger volume. So you really get a good impact no matter where you are in the theater. I haven't been to clubs in a long time. My old adage was if I wasn't playing at one anymore, I had no reason to go to one. So I'm not interested in seeing bands over and over and over again just to say I saw them over and over again when I saw them in their heydays. And I've said this before, there's only one band I would pay to see right now. And you say, well, that's ridiculous. No, it's just one. And it'll never happen, but it's my dream wish, because they're all still alive and they're all perfectly capable, is that if Heart put their original band back together with Ann and Nancy, I would pay whatever it took so I could see just once. And that would be another religious experience for me. And I would try to get as close as possible to try and absorb every aspect of it I could. But it's not,
Yeah, if they put together the original band with Roger Fisher and everybody, I'd go see that.
Yeah, that would be wild.
Yeah, that's another thing you said there, that even for me, and I say even for me because I'm younger than you guys, I go to gigs more seldom than I used to, but I don't find that they are anymore so much of a religious experience. I don't go there and at the end feel like it's been a cathartic experience. I don't know why. Bands play less than they used to, less time. It's a bit what Nick said before. I think about it being more sanitized a bit. Not that, again, I want it to be like a dangerous experience where it's like, moshing, pushing, this, that, whatever. But it doesn't, it's more sanitized, sort of.
Yeah. I can't remember who said it once, but somebody had a phrase called canned rebellion. It's what it's kind of like. It's like it's being sold to us. Oh, that's what you like, The other thing about, though, also, I'll just mention it real quick, is about things is parking at venues or whatever you go to, especially an arena show. It's like that's another expense right there. No matter if you want to park real close, it's more expensive, for like a parking garage or arena that I have near me has a parking garage. But even if you want to park away, it's still like $15. It's just that's another thing that's gotten out of hand. And also, I understand I don't drink, but also I had drinks I know are really ridiculous now. You like $12.50 for a beer.
Can be, yeah.
Well, if I'm spending all that money to park, I'm going to go there and drink.
There you go. Hey,
Yeah.
Showing it cost me an arm and a leg.
Yeah, you
No
better have a
interest in
drink.
that whatsoever.
You better have a drink. Yeah, hey,
I'm going to
Olivia,
have to have a drink because all that money going out, I'll be all stressed out.
Well, you'll be
Yeah.
more stressed because of the money you spent on drinks.
One comment on the merch. I agree, it's really high. However, I think we all know that these bands, artists, usually make any money that they make on touring nowadays and the
Yeah.
merch. So it feels a little bit better
now. Yeah.
It feels a little bit better that pill to go down. Although I don't buy much merch, if at all, anymore, because I think I can go the rest of my life with wearing the same 25 black T-shirts that I have. So if an artist has something other than black, I'm in a little bit more. But it's like it's over. Although Milady just recently got a KK's Priest shirt, which I don't know where she's going to wear it, but KK's Priest. But I also we didn't mention this, especially in the smaller venues. You get to have more contact with the artists now with meet and greets. And there's a lot of places where you don't even have to pay for it. So artists will just sort of hang out outside and afterwards, and you can kind of shake a hand or two, which you didn't get that back in the day. And I know that probably doesn't lend itself to having a religious experience. But, when you have a chance to kind of say hi or talk a little bit with somebody and get an autograph or two, it's been kind of cool. So I kind of like that. So, there's been about a dozen or two people that I've gotten a chance to at least say hi to now over the last 10 or 15 years. And back in the day, I couldn't get that. So I do like that now, actually. I wouldn't pay for it. I'm not going to do the kiss thing because that's, I think, crazy. And the other thing, too, is we're talking about ticket prices. Hopefully the artists get most of those ticket fees. But I have drawn the line. I will not pay crazy prices anymore. I just won't do it. So if Kiss is going to charge $300, I'm not doing it. I'll try to find a price point.
We have ticket fees here. I'm sorry. Wait, go ahead. I'm finished.
No, it's fine.
No, we have ticket fees here, but Philip, are there no ticket fees over in Europe and over there? There's no
Yes, there are. Not very high though. Not very high.
Because people were paying, instead of paying to see Taylor Swift here and dealing with the ticket price, they were going to foreign countries to see Taylor Swift because the tickets aren't as many ticket fees, and they were just going to go there and see Taylor Swift in a foreign country.
What about this thing?
It's cheaper overall, maybe.
There's this thing that's been spoken about a lot lately of dynamic pricing. Is that
Yeah.
That's gonna. I don't think that's a good thing, but we're gonna have it. We're gonna have dynamic pricing in retail stores soon, gentlemen. So that's gonna be a problem. So
we'll see how that works out.
If the tickets are going fast, the $50 ticket may become $70 or $75, and then you are seeing that a bit. Plus, you also have the secondhand market, which is a bit like the Wild West. Although some venues are cracking down on it, some venues will not let you transfer your ticket. So unless you go some sort of old-fashioned way. One thing I miss not having a physical ticket. I don't like it on my Apple Wallet or whatever.
If you somehow give you an opportunity to get a physical ticket. Even if you pay a couple of dollars for it,
Yeah,
you can get your own physical ticket.
I do miss that though. So that's one thing.
That is a bummer.
As an aside, Ted Nugent ruined my hearing from stage volume up from his guitar. Absolutely, my ears rang for a week, never the same since.
Yeah,
I saw one of his shows too. It was loud, back in when he was doing.
I saw Ted
Cities tour.
I saw Ted 3 years ago. Hey, it was great. Don't get me wrong, but man, he's pretty loud still.
Well, we made the joke. We were up at Summerfest in Milwaukee, which is one of the great outdoor festivals in the U.S. Right, it's usually around the 4th of July. It's usually 7 to 10 days, multiple stages, and a lot of major acts would come through there. And if you pick the right day, you could see a great band at noon, at 2:30, at 5, at 7, and then again at 9:30. Well, we made the joke that we went up there in the mid 90s, and they said, "Well, yeah, who did you see?" I said, "Well, everybody saw Ted Nugent." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" Because you could hear Ted at every stage. It didn't matter where you were. You were hearing Ted on his across the layout because it was just deafening. And you're like, well, I saw this band, but I heard Ted.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I will have to say that the concert experience for me has been better because I've been going on that 80s cruise every year. This will be like
There
the
you go.
third year I'm going.
Yeah.
So I can see 20 bands in a week. And the audio is great. You can meet the band after the show. You can get autographs. I take like CD, jewel case, have them sign it.
Well, here's
I
the
just do it
last
all
thing.
one week.
Yeah, and those
Yeah.
are really nicely controlled and they're really well run, and everybody's safety and everything is paramount, and everybody's there to be respectful, so it's not the kind of free for all you get when you go to a standalone. But the last thing I'll say about the phones issue is that it has two sides to it. One, obviously, the visual impediment that you're having to look through all of these screens. But the second, I think, is even more important, the effect that it is actually having on the bands themselves and the touring system itself. There was a band, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the band, but the singer said, in an interview, he said he decided to cancel a specific show. And they said, well, why did you cancel? He said, normally I would never cancel a show. He said, these people, they want their show. He said, however, everybody in the audience has a phone. Every phone has a camera. If I go out and suck, next morning, every video is band such and such, singer stinks. It affects ticket sales on the next shows. It affects everything going forward. Look what happened to Arnell.
That could be Tool. That might be Tool.
I think it
Look
may
at
be.
Vince Neil.
Oh no.
But
I'm sure he had that one bad night, and look what we got.
One.
Oh, that's
And-
also one show. I wasn't aware of that.
Axl
Well,
Rose, one bad night.
Well, and Arnell had that bad night, and he's
Yeah.
like, oh, if the fans vote, I'll quit. That's absurd.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Concerts, as much as we love them and take advantage of them on YouTube and all the other things that go along with it, are by design supposed to be of the moment, in the moment, at the moment. They're not supposed to last longer than that. And it's you being there and being surrounded and taking in all the things that go along with it. And like you said, Nick, and there's all the other sites, it took away that spontaneousness. And you talk about an edge of danger. Nothing was cooler than you would go see a band like Blue Oyster Cult in the 70s. And all of a sudden, 2/3 through the set, they're pulling some rare, crazy inner track out of nowhere. And you and your buddies, it's that common look. I can't believe they're playing such and such. And that can make the whole show just go to a whole new level. And it just comes out of nowhere. You're not prepared for it. And you're like, I can't believe they played such and such. And then conversely, you say, I can't believe they didn't play such.
Yeah.
They
didn't do
but to
that
be
one.
able to go and be surprised like that, well, the package is already unwrapped. Everybody knows what's going on. As soon as the very first show was played, when Iron Maiden finally pulled out Alexander the Great, mystery was over.
Yeah.
The most requested live song in their catalog. All of a sudden, there it is on the first night of that tour. And everybody goes, oh, guess what? We're getting Alexander the Great. Yay. As opposed to being there, watching the backdrop get pulled across. Hear my son ask my, and freaking out in real time. You can't get that back.
And you know what? You freaking out in real time, all collectively.
Yes.
But that doesn't happen even if you don't know what's gonna come on the set list. Everyone's with their phones and they're focused on that. So it's you are more and more like it's less of a collective experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's very true.
But it's still better but music though, for me, and I agree about that spontaneity. But we can listen in our cars, listen alone, but rock especially, I think it's meant to be consumed communally. And I think you still get that, but I hear what you're saying. You lose that element, but you're still there in that moment.
Oh,
So,
no, it's way better. And all the best memories I've ever had are not just seeing what I saw. It was who I saw them with.
Right. There you go.
And those people I can still go back and talk to. Again, I'm not, I've never been a drug or drink guy, and I never understood my friends in other sectors who go, do you remember the show? No, man, I was too wasted. I go, then why go? Why go? It just seems to me just such a waste. And I'm being old and cranky and judgmental here, and I'll admit that. But I want to remember every note, what the stage looked like, what the lighting looked like. I always got there as early as possible just to look at gear. And how many lights do they have? What's in the backdrop? What are they doing? What's the staging? That stuff fascinated me. And that was all part of, the beauty of going to a big show. And, that's the only reason why I still go.
Do you guys still have that opportunity of discovering a band through a concert?
Yeah, I did.
Have I ever, or like recently?
Oh, no, not ever.
Okay.
For many
Paul
times.
Stanley's son, Evan, his band opened for Kiss at that show, and I became a huge fan.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about them. And why I can't... Oh, Amber Rose. That was the name of their band, I believe.
Yeah.
They were amazing. And I checked out their album the very next day.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that was...
For me, not really. It hasn't happened in a while. As a matter of fact, and I'll sound like the cranky old man now, but some artists actually eschew having openers, and I don't mind. Robin Trower doesn't like openers. Every once in a while he does, but especially if it's during the week and we can get in and get out, because everybody's got to get home and get stuff done, especially if you're driving an hour and a half. So that does sound cranky on my part, but it's very I can't remember the last time that an opener act just like blew me away. I'm like, I got to go buy this album. It's been decades. The one of the first would have been Accept when I saw them open for Kiss on the Lick It Up tour, but they blew me away. But I knew about them already, kind of. So, but yeah, that's tough. That's a good question. I'd have to really think about that.
Yeah.
I did have one, and I'm trying to think of the name of the band, but then when I went to buy like their CD or something, all they had were downloads, and then I lost interest.
No, there you go. Right.
I saw Stars open for Rush on Hemispheres.
There you go.
But I was already a huge fan. They were 4 albums into it already. Wow. Everybody around me had no bloody clue who they were. And that's kind of a cool feeling. I'm up there. I know every song, every lyric, and I was so excited. And people are looking at me like, they have no clue who this is. And
they didn't have Shazam?
What's that?
They didn't Shazam it with their phones?
Yeah. No phones back then. Yeah. And then, of course, when Maiden came out and Brave New World, Halford and Queensryche opened. Of course, these aren't new bands. I mean, Halford was brand new, and I was already a fan of Resurrection. But most people around me had no clue who they were until he started playing Judas Priest songs, and then they recognized it. But they didn't even know the Maiden songs from Brave New World, which is why they were playing the UIC Pavilion with 2 other bands opening, as opposed to the Rosemont Horizon where they would play, or the Chicago Stadium or the International Amphitheater decades earlier, because the U.S. market knew all the material. The U.S. market didn't give a crap about Brave New World. Yeah, Bruce was back, but so what?
Right.
They didn't care.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we probably discussed it.
Yeah, I think we went about
an hour.
There's good and bad about it everywhere.
Yeah. So everybody in the chat, we appreciate you watching. We want to hear from you. How was your experience? Is it a religious experience when you go to a show? Do you not care about going to shows anymore? We want to hear from you. I want to thank the panel, Philip, Peter, Nick, and the Elder. If you'd like to be on these shows, we'd love to have you. We have a Patreon. Buy us a cup or a pint, but you can't do that in Patreon. But you can join Patreon. We have a lot of perks on there, a lot of good discussions. We do have a Ko-fi, buy us a pint or a cup of coffee. We'd love to have that. Also take donations. We're here. We just like talking music. So I want to thank the panel. We'll see you. Leave a comment, and we'll catch you on the next one.